Did ancient humans fall in love in an afternoon? Not over months of texting, not over years of dating apps, but in a single glance across a fire?
Scientists have actually tried to answer this question, and the answer might completely change how you think about love, attraction, and why your own heart still races the same way a caveman's did 50,000 years ago.
Let's go back. Way back.
Before agriculture, before cities, before written language even existed. Our ancestors lived in small bands, usually no more than 30 to 50 people, moving across landscapes in search of food, water, and safety.
In a world like that, you didn't have the luxury of a long courtship. You didn't have coffee dates. You didn't have months to figure out if someone was the one. If you found a healthy, capable partner, waiting around was a risk you probably couldn't afford. Picture it for a second.
A small group huddled around a fire as the sun drops behind the hills. Someone returns from a hunt, exhausted but successful, carrying enough meat to feed the group for days.
Across the flames, someone else notices. Notices the strength, the steadiness, the way this person shares the kill instead of hoarding it. There's no small talk needed, no getting to know you face stretched across weeks. The information that matters is right there, visible, undeniable. That's the world ancient love was born into.
Anthropologists who study hunter-gatherer societies that still exist today, groups like the Hadza in Tanzania or the Juhoansi in the Kalahari, have found something fascinating. Pair bonding, the process of two people choosing each other as partners, often happens remarkably fast.
Sometimes within days, sometimes within a single encounter. And this isn't because ancient people were reckless or impulsive. It's because their entire environment was built for quick, decisive judgment. Think about it this way. Every decision a Stone Age human made was tied to survival. Is that fruit safe to eat? Decide fast. Is that rustling in the grass a predator? Decide fast. Is this person in front of me strong, healthy, and someone I could build a life and raise children with?
That decision, too, had to be fast, because hesitation in the ancient world could mean losing a mate to someone else in the group, or worse, being alone when winter came and resources became scarce. So here's where it gets interesting. Your brain, right now, in this exact moment, is running the same hardware. The systems that light up when you feel a spark of attraction, the flood of dopamine, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, these are not modern inventions. They are ancient survival tools, repurposed for romance. When researchers scan the brains of people who report falling in love quickly, they see activity in the ventral tegmental area, a part of the brain loaded with dopamine receptors, the same reward circuitry that lights up when you eat something delicious or win a game.
This system is ancient. It predates language. It predates tools. Some researchers believe versions of it existed in our primate ancestors millions of years before Homo sapiens even walked the earth. Now, you might be thinking, sure, but attraction is one thing. Actual love, the deep emotional bond, surely that took longer to build. And in some ways, you'd be right. But ancient love wasn't necessarily about deep emotional intimacy the way we think of it today. It was about partnership. It was about finding someone who could help you gather food, defend the group, share warmth on a cold night, and raise children who would survive long enough to have children of their own. That kind of bond could form fast, because the criteria were immediate and observable. Is this person strong? Do they share resources? Are they kind to the children in the group? Do they seem loyal? These traits don't take months to notice. Sometimes you can see them within hours of watching someone interact with their community. There's also a biological argument here that's honestly kind of wild. Some researchers point to the hormone oxytocin, often nicknamed the bonding hormone. It spikes during physical touch, during eye contact, during shared moments of vulnerability or laughter. In small, close-knit ancient communities, people were almost never alone. They ate together, slept near each other for warmth, worked side by side gathering food or crafting tools. That constant physical closeness means oxytocin was likely surging far more often and far more intensely than it does in our modern, isolated lives, where we can go days without meaningful physical contact with another person. If oxytocin is the glue of bonding, ancient humans were essentially swimming in it every single day, which means the glue could set fast. Archaeology adds another layer to this story, one written not in words but in bones. Burial sites from thousands of years ago have occasionally revealed something remarkable. Two skeletons, an adult male and an adult female, buried together, facing each other,
sometimes with their arms interlocked or hands touching, surrounded by shared grave goods. Researchers can't know for certain what these burials meant emotionally, but the deliberate positioning suggests a bond significant enough to be honored in death.
Whatever the ancient world's version of love looked like, it left behind physical evidence of togetherness that has survived for millennia. And here's a detail that often gets overlooked.
Ancient life was short and unpredictable. Life expectancy in prehistoric times, when you exclude high infant mortality rates, often hovered somewhere around 30 to 40 years for adults who survived childhood.
That's not a lot of time. If you knew, on some level, that your years were limited, would you really wait around for a slow-burn romance? Or would you recognize a good partner and commit, because tomorrow was never guaranteed?
This urgency, this awareness of mortality, may have been baked into how quickly ancient people formed bonds. Waiting was a luxury, deciding was survival.
Now let's talk about something that might surprise you: jealousy and competition.
If falling in love fast sounds romantic, it's worth remembering that it also came with fierce competition. In many hunter-gatherer societies studied today, and likely in ancient ones as well, desirable partners didn't stay single for long. If you spotted someone impressive, strong, resourceful, kind, and hesitated, someone else in your small band might not.
This created intense pressure to act quickly once interest was mutual.
Slow, cautious courtship simply wasn't a winning strategy when your entire dating pool might consist of a few dozen people, several of whom were already related to you and therefore off-limits.
This brings up another fascinating point. Because ancient communities were so small, choices were genuinely limited.
Unlike today, where you can swipe through thousands of potential partners in a single evening, an ancient human might have only a handful of realistic options within their own group, or occasionally through contact with neighboring bands during seasonal gatherings or trade meetings. When your options are limited, recognition happens fast, and so does commitment, because you understand on some level that this opportunity might not repeat itself anytime soon. These seasonal gatherings deserve their own moment of attention, because they may have functioned as the ancient world's version of a singles event. Different bands would sometimes meet at specific times of year, near a river during salmon runs, or at a favorable hunting ground when herds pass through. These gatherings weren't just about trading tools or sharing news. They were often the only chance an individual had to meet someone from outside their own small group, someone who wasn't already a close relative. Researchers believe these brief windows of contact, sometimes lasting only days or weeks before groups dispersed again, created intense pressure to form bonds quickly, because the alternative was waiting an entire year, or longer, for another chance encounter. There's also compelling evidence from evolutionary psychology suggesting that specific physical and behavioral cues trigger nearly instant attraction responses, cues that would have been just as visible 10,000 years ago as they are now.
Facial symmetry, for example, is processed by the brain in fractions of a second and is often linked to genetic health. Vocal tone, body language, and even scent play roles in attraction that operate below conscious thought.
Our ancestors weren't consciously analyzing pheromones or symmetry ratios, but their brains were doing it automatically, instantly, the same way yours does today when you meet someone and feel an inexplicable pull toward them. Interestingly, modern speed dating research gives us a strange window into this ancient wiring. Studies on speed dating have found that people often form a strong impression of interest or disinterest within the first few seconds of meeting someone, long before a single meaningful conversation happens. Some researchers see this as a modern echo of the exact same snap judgment system ancient humans relied on, a system built to sort potential partners quickly in environments where extended deliberation simply wasn't practical. In other words, that fast, gut-level yes or no you feel when meeting someone new isn't a flaw in modern dating.
It might be one of the oldest decision-making tools your brain owns.
It's also worth mentioning that not every ancient pairing was purely a matter of individual choice. In many prehistoric and early human societies, family and group dynamics likely played a role in who ended up together, sometimes through subtle encouragement, sometimes through more direct arrangement. But even within those social structures, the moment of personal recognition, that spark of attraction or comfort between two specific people, still appears to have mattered. Evolutionary biologists argue that even in systems with some degree of arranged pairing, individual preference and quick emotional bonding continued to shape who thrived as a couple and who didn't, because compatibility affected everything from cooperation to child-rearing success.
So if quick bonding was so common, why does modern dating feel like such a slow, complicated, drawn-out process?
Part of the answer lies in how dramatically our environment has changed.
We no longer live in small bands where everyone knows everyone. We live in cities of millions, surrounded by endless choice, which can actually make decision-making harder, a phenomenon psychologists call the paradox of choice. Ancient humans didn't have the paralysis of scrolling through hundreds of profiles.
They had a handful of real, physically present options, and their brains were wired to commit quickly once a good match appeared.
Modern life has also added layers of complexity ancient humans never had to consider.
Careers, long-distance relationships, financial independence, blended families, the sheer number of factors we now weigh before committing to someone would have been almost meaningless in a world where survival depended primarily on strength, health, kindness, and resourcefulness.
We've essentially added dozens of new variables to a decision-making system that evolved to work with just a few. It's a bit like trying to run a brand new, complicated piece of software on hardware that was built for something far simpler.
The hardware still works, but it wasn't designed for this much input. There's one more piece of this puzzle worth exploring: the role of shared hardship.
Ancient life was dangerous.
Predators, famine, disease, and harsh weather were constant threats. Psychologists have long noted that shared adversity tends to accelerate emotional bonding between people, a phenomenon sometimes observed in modern contexts like soldiers in combat or strangers surviving a natural disaster together. If two ancient humans faced a dangerous migration, a brutal winter, or a threatening predator side by side, that shared intensity could have compressed months of typical relationship building into a matter of days, forging a bond through crisis rather than through slow, comfortable familiarity. There's also a physical side to this story that's easy to overlook: touch itself. In the ancient world, physical contact wasn't reserved for romance alone. People slept in piles for warmth, carried each other's children, groomed one another the way primates still do today, picking through hair, checking for injuries, offering small acts of care. This constant, casual physical closeness meant that when romantic touch did happen, it wasn't a rare, loaded event the way a first handhold can feel today. It was simply an extension of a world already built on touch, which may have made the transition from friendly closeness to romantic bonding far smoother and faster than it tends to be in a modern world where physical contact between strangers is much more limited and carries far more weight.
Language itself is another clue worth considering.
Some linguists believe early human communication relied heavily on tone, gesture, and facial expression long before complex spoken language fully developed. If that's true, then ancient people may have been remarkably skilled at reading nonverbal cues, picking up on subtle signals of interest, warmth, or hesitation without needing a single spoken word.
In a world like that,
an entire silent conversation of attraction could unfold across a single shared meal or a single walk gathering firewood, cues modern humans still send and receive constantly, even though we now have language to fall back on when the nonverbal signals feel too ambiguous. It's also worth considering how children factored into the speed of ancient bonding. Raising a child in the prehistoric world required enormous cooperation, more calories, more protection, more constant supervision than one person could reasonably provide alone. Some researchers argue this created strong evolutionary pressure toward quick pair bonding, because the sooner two capable adults committed to raising offspring together, the better the child's odds of survival. In this light, falling in love quickly wasn't just a nice feeling. It may have been one of the most practical decisions two ancient humans could make, directly tied to whether their children lived long enough to have children of their own. Even the physical environment played a role in shaping how quickly people paired off. Seasonal changes dictated nearly everything about ancient life: when food was abundant, when the group needed to migrate, when shelter became a matter of life and death. Forming a partnership before a harsh season arrived wasn't romantic idealism.
It was preparation.
Two people working together could gather more food, build better shelter, and share body heat far more effectively than two people working alone. In many ways, the ancient world rewarded fast, practical bonding the same way it rewarded fast, practical decisions about everything else, because indecision in a world with no safety net could be genuinely dangerous. But here's the twist that ties it all together. Even with all these modern complications, that ancient wiring hasn't gone anywhere.
It's still firing beneath the surface every single time you meet someone new. That instant feeling of connection, the version of chemistry people still describe today, science suggests it's not some modern romantic myth. It's a genuine echo of a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors form bonds quickly enough to endure some of the harshest conditions humans have ever faced. So the next time you feel that unexpected spark, that inexplicable pull towards someone within minutes of meeting them, you're not being irrational. You're experiencing a system that has been fine-tuned over hundreds of thousands of years, a system built by ancestors who didn't have time to overthink love, because for them, recognizing the right person quickly wasn't just romantic, it was survival. And in a strange way, every fast-beating heart today is still running on Stone Age software, just wrapped in a modern world that moves at a completely different pace.